In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create an Alexa skill for an astronaut. For this, we're going to be using the MIT App Inventor interface. So once you have a Google account and you are able to log into MIT App Inventor, we go to Projects, and we start a new project. And make sure that you are in the Alexa interface for MIT App Inventor. Your teacher will provide you the link for that. I'm going to call my project Astronaut Pulse Checker. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be checking the pulse values for our astronaut. When you go to when the new project starts, you go to where there is screen 1, and as you notice that there's an add menu right next to it. It's called Add Skill. So I'm going to add a new skill, and I'm going to call this skill Pulse Checker. Okay. So and make sure that the letters are in small letters, not in caps. So I OK that, and my skill is now ready. So I'm going to drop in a couple of intents here. The first intent is going to be the health check intent. We need to communicate to Alexa that we would like to run a health check. So let's call this intent Pulse Check Intent. As you notice, I'm using what is called camel case. Start with a small letter and then capitalize as you go on. So Pulse Check Intent. And we're going to have a bunch of utterances that amount to this intent. So I'm going to say something like run pulse check. Another one could be check pulse. Basically, a bunch of utterances that amount to, the astronaut being, requesting that there's going to be a pulse check. Now, we're going to be collecting the pulse that is being reported by the astronaut. So for that, I'm going to get a slot, which is basically like a variable. I'm going to rename my slot to be pulse rate slot. Okay, and the slot type is going to be a number. It's just going to be a number between 0 and 200, some value. And finally, I'm going to have another intent, which is when the astronaut is now reporting the value for the pulse rate. Going to say something like and actually let's rename this first. So this is going to be let's call it pulse check intent, and then pulse report intent. You could call that pulse report intent. And then one possible utterance for this could be my pulse rate is, and then what is going to be reported is the pulse rate. So we're going to capture that in our slot by pressing the button here, pulse rate slot. So this is one way to say that. Another way to say it might be the pulse rate is, and then you enter that. And you could imagine there could be other alternatives. So I believe our voice user interface is pretty much ready. Now we're going to give behavior to these. So what I'm going to do is, so I'll come to here. When pulse check intent is spoken, basically when the astronaut says something like, Alexa, ask pulse checker to run pulse check. Basically, when that is uttered, when that is spoken, we're going to have Alexa ask the question, what is your pulse rate? What is your pulse rate? Okay, so Alexa is going to ask this as a question. And then, going back to the designer so we can see, the astronaut is say something like, my pulse rate is, and he's going to report, she or he is going to report a number like 65, 80, 100, etc. So when that is being spoken, when the pulse rate report intent has been spoken, so we're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to say back what we heard. Alexa is going to say back what she heard. So she's going to say that, and I'm going to use a text join block. She's going to say something like, I heard that your pulse rate is, and then here we're going to enter the value that was acquired from the astronaut. So I'm going to go to pulse rate slot, but we're going to capture the value of it. Okay, so this is where Alexa is going to be reporting back what the value she heard. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do an assessment whether this is in healthy range, this value is in healthy range or not. So to do that, I'm going to have a comparator. I'm going to say, so if the value is between this and that value, then you're healthy, otherwise you're not. So let's actually put some math blocks here. So I'm going to put first a greater than or equal to symbol. And then I'm going to put a less than or equal to symbol. Okay? So what we're going to say basically is the pulse rate slot value, and you could actually click on that and do a copy paste, because I'm going to need two of these here. So if the pulse rate value, and you're going to have to do some research on this, I just did some research and I found out that if the pulse rate is between 60 and 100, then that is a healthy range for pulse rate. So Alexa is going to basically just say that. So we're going to say, pulse rate is in healthy range. So this is the first response if the conditional is satisfied. And then I'm going to copy paste that. Otherwise, so if you got a value outside the range of 60 to 100, so you got 120 or you got a 50, we're going to say pulse rate is not in healthy range, and we're going to say seek help. Okay. Now, it is a good idea to have a pause between statements. So after Alexa repeats that the pulse rate she heard, it'll be a good idea to have a momentary silence. I don't know. I'm gonna say maybe 0.5 seconds. You could play with that, and this way, there's a pause, and then an assessment is made whether the value is in healthy range or not. Okay, so now we are ready to log into Amazon. So I click on that. I had already signed up before and it's remembering, so I'm gonna allow that to happen. If you haven't signed up, just sign into your Amazon developer account. And now it's waiting for the update. So I'm gonna click on this. This might take a few minutes. You just need to be patient as this is happening. It might be a good idea to, while this is happening, to check that your code makes sense. Here we have an observe skill updated successfully on Amazon. So that is great news. But the build has to finish. So this is going to take probably an extra few minutes. That's okay. So we check that, when the pulse check intent is spoken, Alexa asks, what is your pulse rate? And then when the astronaut reports the pulse rate, she says, oh, I heard your pulse rate is blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is there's an assessment whether this value is in the healthy range or not in the healthy range. So we're going to wait for a second, and this is great news. As you see, the testing area became clear. You could actually write here what the communication is going to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the designer to remind myself how do we start the process. And I have Alexa on my mobile device. I'm just going to maximize the volume so you can hear it. So I'm going to ask the question. Alexa, ask Pulse Checker to check my pulse.
This skill was created with MIT App Inventor.
Let's try again. Alexa, ask Pulse Checker to run pulse check.
What is your pulse rate?
My pulse rate is 60.
I heard that your pulse rate is 60. Pulse rate is in healthy range.
So as you can see, 60 is at the boundary, so it got accepted. Let's try again. Alexa, tell Pulse Checker that my pulse rate is 120.
I heard that your pulse rate is 120. Pulse rate is not in healthy range. Seek help.
Alrighty, I hope you could see that happening, and you could also actually type in here. You might as well try that. I hope that the testing interface is working. So I'm gonna say something like, ask Pulse Checker to let's see what we said, to run pulse check. So we wait, and if we're lucky,
what is your pulse rate?
So what is the pulse rate? And then the response is my pulse rate is 100.
I heard that your pulse rate is 100. Pulse rate is in healthy range.
Okay, and then let's try one more time. Tell Pulse Checker that my pulse rate is 50. Let's see what happens when you enter a value like that.
I heard that your pulse rate is 50. Pulse rate is not in healthy range. Seek help.
Alrighty. So this is an example of how you will be able to create a skill in Alexa using MIT App Inventor. Create your voice user interface by creating your intents and the associated utterances for that intent, by creating your slot, which is going to capture the values that the user utters, and then give behavior. Okay, so when the program is initiated, what should Alexa ask? When the astronaut speaks back, what should Alexa respond? And how should she do an assessment of the values that are entered? Okay, I hope this was helpful. Enjoy, and I am looking forward to seeing the wonderful things you will create. Take care.